The diner was supposed to be a place of warmth, a quiet little escape from the troubles of life, the kind of place where the smell of pancakes and coffee drifted together to create comfort. But that morning, it was anything but comforting. In the corner booth sat Emily, a 16-year-old girl whose life had been marked by challenges far greater than most people could imagine. Born with a condition that left her legs unable to carry her weight, she lived every day in a wheelchair. Despite her fragile body, she carried a spirit of resilience that her mother often said was stronger than steel. Emily had come with her mother, Sarah, for a simple breakfast, hoping to enjoy a morning out in the world like any other family. Yet instead of peace, they were met with cruelty. At a nearby table sat three men who should have known better. They were not teenagers, not children, but grown men, loud and careless with their words. They glanced at Emily, then at each other, and smirked. One of them leaned back in his seat and whispered just loud enough for everyone around to hear, "What's the point of rolling around in here if you can't even walk?" Another snickered, "Maybe she's just here to make the rest of us lose our appetite." Their laughter was sharp, ugly, and it filled the diner like poison. Emily froze, her hands trembling on her lap, her eyes dropping to the table as if maybe, if she didn't look up, she could vanish. Her mother's heart broke in that moment, and Sarah wanted to scream at them, to stand up and defend her daughter, but she was trapped between fear of escalating things and the deep ache of helplessness. Around them, other customers shifted uncomfortably, some staring into their coffee cups, some pretending not to hear. The waitress shot them an apologetic glance, but she too said nothing. The room felt heavy, suffocating. Emily's hope for a normal morning was crushed under the sound of cruel laughter. But life has a strange way of turning moments of darkness into scenes no one forgets. An hour later, just as Emily was finishing the last of her pancakes in silence, the faint sound of engines echoed in the distance. At first it was barely noticeable, a low rumble that grew steadily louder. People inside the diner turned their heads, puzzled. The sound grew, shaking the windows, a thunder that rolled closer and closer until it seemed to hover right outside. Then came the sight, dozens of motorcycles pulling into the parking lot, chrome glinting in the sun, engines growling like lions. The sight alone was enough to make everyone inside go still. On the backs of the riders' jackets was an emblem recognized everywhere, the skull and wings of the Hells Angels. The door swung open and in they came, a flood of leather, tattoos, and heavy boots. The air in the diner changed instantly. Gone was the mocking laughter, gone was the cruelty. In its place was silence, the kind that comes when people know something bigger than themselves has just walked into the room. At the front of the group was a massive man with a beard streaked in gray, his eyes sharp and commanding. His name was Big Ray, and every step he took seemed to shake the floor. He scanned the room, his gaze moving over every table, until his eyes landed on Emily. Something softened in his expression. While to the rest of the room he looked like a storm-given flesh, to Emily he seemed to transform into something gentler, something protective. He walked over to her booth, knelt down so that he was eye level with her, and spoke in a voice far gentler than anyone expected. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. "Mind if we sit with you for a while?" Emily looked at her mother, uncertain, and Sarah, still stunned, nodded. Within moments, the toughest-looking men in the place surrounded Emily's booth, sitting with her, ordering food, and turning what had been the loneliest table into the center of attention. They joked with her, asked her about her favorite foods, her favorite movies, and one of them even pulled a small teddy bear keychain off his vest and handed it to her, saying, "For our little sister." Emily's smile, which had been buried beneath humiliation an hour earlier, began to shine again, so bright that even the waitress couldn't help but grin as she refilled their coffee. But Big Ray hadn't forgotten what he had heard when he walked in. He turned his head slowly toward the men who had mocked Emily earlier. The bullies, once so loud and bold, were now stiff and pale. Ray stood, towering over them, and his voice dropped to a calm, steady tone that carried more weight than shouting ever could. "I heard what you said," he began. "And let me tell you something. Picking on a young girl in a wheelchair doesn't make you tough. It doesn't make you funny. It makes you cowards." The diner was silent. The three men shifted in their seats, trying to laugh it off, but the sound died in their throats under the weight of a dozen cold stares from the bikers. Ray leaned down closer, his shadow engulfing their table. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk over to her, you're going to apologize, and then you're going to leave. Because if you don't, every one of us is going to make sure you remember this day for the rest of your life." The men, shaking now, stood awkwardly. They stumbled over their words, stammering apologies to Emily, who sat wide-eyed, unable to fully process what was happening. Her mother gripped her hand tightly, tears forming in her eyes, not from sadness this time, but from gratitude and awe. When the men hurried out of the diner, their earlier arrogance gone, the room seemed to exhale all at once. The atmosphere shifted again, but this time it was warm, protective, even celebratory. The bikers stayed for an hour, turning what had begun as a morning of cruelty into a memory Emily would cherish forever. They shared stories of their travels, tales of deserts and mountains, and the families they had waiting for them back home. One of them leaned down to Emily and said softly, "Don't you ever let anyone make you feel like you're less than what you are. You're stronger than most people you'll ever meet." When at last they rose to leave, the engines roared once again, the thunder of brotherhood and defiance filling the air as they disappeared down the highway. Emily sat in the booth long after they left, holding the teddy bear keychain in her hand. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. She felt powerful, seen, and respected. Her mother wrapped an arm around her and whispered, "See, Emily? Kindness can come from the most unexpected places." And the diner, forever changed, carried the story forward. The waitress told it to every new customer who asked about the mural of motorcycles painted years later on the wall. And those who mocked? They never dared to raise their voices again. Because sometimes justice doesn't come in a courtroom, and it doesn't arrive in a police car. Sometimes it roars in on two wheels, with leather jackets, steel engines, and hearts bigger than anyone could imagine. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people we least expect become the angels we need. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever seen kindness arrive from an unexpected place? I'd love to hear your stories. And if you want more powerful and emotional true life tales like this one, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is Be Kind Always, reminding you that no act of kindness is ever wasted. Together, we can make this world a better place.